Preseason football is finally in the books, thank goodness. Let's be honest, it's always tough sitting through those games, waiting for the real stars to hit the field and the season to actually begin. But for the Chargers, something very interesting has come out of these last few weeks, and it could shake up the 53-man roster. Before we dive into this breaking update, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the latest Chargers news. Now, let's jump right into it. Here's the headline. An undrafted rookie, Marlowe Wax, has forced his way into the conversation. Against the 49ers, he didn't just show up, he completely changed the game. A forced fumble, a crucial third down stop, and constant pressure on the quarterback. Plays like that don't just go unnoticed. They force coaches to rethink the roster. Now, this creates a ripple effect. Junior Carlson, a guy many assumed would have a guaranteed spot, is dealing with injury concerns. And while Carlson isn't going anywhere, Wax's performance is suddenly putting real pressure on the depth chart. When you look at the linebacker room, the names are stacked: Denzel Perryman, Dion Henley, Troy Dye, Junior Carlson, Kyle Kennard, even Caleb Murphy sliding into that hybrid role. And right there in the mix, Marlowe Wax. The surprising part? Despite being undrafted, Wax has been one of the most impressive players all preseason. That makes him the toughest decision when final cuts roll around. Now here's where things get tricky. Junior Carlson, a player the Chargers invested in heavily, isn't exactly trending in the right direction. He fell behind last year, and now with his recent setback, he's starting to slip again. For a young linebacker drafted with high expectations, that's not what you want to see. It's reached the point where you have to wonder, if the team finds themselves comfortable with Wax and the other depth pieces, does Carlson eventually become trade bait once he's healthy? Or am I reading too far into it? Maybe. But the conversation is definitely out there. Even Jim Harbaugh has been vague, only mentioning that Carlson aggravated something during the Hall of Fame game. That kind of silence only fuels speculation. The silver lining, though, is that the Chargers are unusually deep at linebacker right now. And while the offense hasn't truly unleashed its full firepower yet, outside of a brief series with Justin Herbert, the pieces are all there, waiting for the season opener. Here's where things get really interesting. The Chargers already have reliable names at linebacker: Denzel Perryman, Dion Henley, Troy Dye, Kyle Kennard shifting into that rush and roll. Plenty of options, right? And then suddenly, Marlowe Wax storms onto the scene. An undrafted rookie, yet he's been making plays that scream, "I belong here." Take this one sequence for example. Wax reads the play instantly, slips right through the line, shrugs off the block, and boom, meets the ball carrier in the backfield for a tackle for loss. That's not luck. That's instinct and speed. And just one snap later, he turns around, times a blitz perfectly, gets to the quarterback, forces the fumble, and completely flips momentum. Those are the kinds of plays that can't be ignored. Which brings us back to Junior Carlson. The talent is there, no question, but the reality is he's slipping while others are climbing. If Wax keeps stacking performances like this, the coaching staff might be forced into a tough decision. Do you keep Carlson around out of investment? Or do you roll with the guy who's proving it on the field? Let's circle back for a moment, because I still can't get over that sequence from Marlowe Wax. In one drive alone, he showed exactly why people are talking about him. First, he sniffed out a short pass in coverage and stopped the running back almost immediately. On the very next snap, he came downhill in run support and absolutely leveled the ball carrier for a loss. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he lined up on a blitz, ripped through the line, and forced a strip sack. That's 3 impact plays in a row by an undrafted rookie. That's not just good, that's statement football. Now, while Wax is making his case impossible to ignore, you've also got names like Nico Reed to think about. Early in preseason, Reed flashed. He was flying around, making highlight-level plays. But as things wore on, he started to fade into the background a little bit. Not bad, just not standing out the same way. And that's the problem when roster cuts come around. You can't afford to just blend in, especially when other guys are surging. And speaking of cuts, the deadline is coming fast. By Tuesday at 4 p.m., Every team in the NFL has to trim down to 53 players. In the past, it used to happen in stages, but now it's one massive slash. Nearly 40 guys in every locker room will suddenly be gone. Some will land on practice squads, sure, but for a lot of them, this week could be the end of their NFL journey. That's what makes this stretch so brutal, yet so fascinating. For the Chargers, here's where it gets intriguing. I just don't see how you let Marlowe Wax go. He's doing everything a coach could possibly ask for and more. He's outplaying expectations, outworking veterans, and forcing his way into the roster conversation. Cutting him at this point feels unthinkable. And it's not just linebacker battles that matter. At quarterback, Trey Lance looks locked in as the backup. At running back, you've got Najee Harris, Amaron Hampton, Hassan Haskins, and Rocket Sanders all pushing for spots. Tight end seems set. That one feels easy. And on the offensive line, decisions are coming that could shape how this team protects Justin Herbert all year long. So when those final 53 names are announced, don't be surprised if a few unexpected ones show up. Because right now, guys like Marlowe Wax are rewriting the script in real time. Another position group worth highlighting is safety, with Derwin James leading the way, alongside Elijah Molden, Alohi Gilman, and JT Woods. That unit looks solid. There's no real drama there. The starters are clear, and the depth feels reliable. At cornerback, it's the same story. The group is set. Linebacker has surprising depth now, especially with the emergence of Marlowe Wax. And even the defensive line, while it carries a few question marks, doesn't feel like a major liability. That's the thing about this Chargers roster. There are battles worth watching, sure, but there's also a sense of stability across the board. And with the preseason now behind us, it's less about speculation and more about execution. The countdown has begun. We're about 2 weeks away from real football, and for Chargers fans, it's even sooner since the opener falls on a Friday. This is the hardest stretch of the offseason. It feels like time drags on forever. And then suddenly, kickoff is right around the corner. But here's the bottom line. It's tough to imagine this team being anything other than competitive. Jim Harbaugh is simply too sharp of a coach to let this group stumble, and Justin Herbert is too talented of a quarterback to let the offense stall out. From an outside perspective, it almost feels impossible to picture the Chargers as a bad team. There's just too much leadership, too much talent, and too much upside. And that's why the anticipation is sky high. Fans aren't just waiting for games, they're craving them. At this point, every Charger supporter feels the same way. Preseason is over, predictions are done, now it's time for the real thing. The thing about preseason games is that they can drive fans crazy, because no matter what happens, the results feel misleading. If your team wins, it doesn't really mean anything. You know it's mostly backups, and you can't draw conclusions about the starters. If your team loses, it also doesn't mean much, because the players you'll actually count on in the regular season aren't even out there. That's why preseason often feels like a trick. You see flashes of excitement and think, maybe this is who we are. But then you remember it's happening against vanilla defensive schemes and second-string defenders. On the flip side, you see your team struggle, and it's tempting to panic until you realize your stars are standing on the sidelines in shorts. It's almost like watching a high school JV team play on Friday night. Sure, they represent your school, but you know the real standard is set when the varsity squad takes the field. That's the exact feeling with preseason football. It's a placeholder, not the real thing. So whether the Chargers look sharp in stretches or sloppy in others, the truth is neither extreme tells the full story. What really matters is what happens when the lights come on, the starters play 4 quarters, and the season officially begins.